Lisa here. Ooh, I have an episode you do not want to miss, especially if you are a visionary, if you are a creator, if you are somebody who knows that you have a program, a product, um, a methodology that you've been sitting on, possibly even teaching, and not protecting your intellectual property, what we call in the world of entrepreneurship, our IP. I have today trademark attorney Neidy Hornsby, and every time I say her name, I want to say like Lady Hornsby because that's how she is. She is elegant, she is sophisticated, she is smart, and just so well put together. And she has put together beautiful programs specifically for women entrepreneurs. That is her specialty, and protecting you, making sure that you have all your T's crossed and I's dotted for not only just your intellectual property, but just setting up your business. And I know so many solopreneurs, mompreneurs are doing this uh, incorrectly. I was one of them. Big time one of them. But I did find Nady on her Instagram, which is the best place to get her to take a look at Protect Your Genius. And we speak about a couple of things. It's a longer show. Let me warn you, this is the one that you put on while you go work out. You'll get a nice hour with this intro and the exit and everything. It's about a 45-minute show. We talk about this messy state of transition into law practice that she had, just so that it inspires you that it's not just, the social healers of the healing arts, the traditional healing arts, but we are now seeing these medicine women come out of law. We're seeing them come out of governance. We're seeing them come out of academics because we need to all be unapologetically helping women founders heal themselves, such as what I do, their personal self management, as well as packaging them and repositioning them. We need to make sure that when they are repositioned, that they're protected, such as what Nady does. Um, the lies that mothering is a social construct, and the fact that we really need to start owning it, owning that rollback and the specialness of being a woman in it, how much we're avoiding, ourselves when we turn in chameleons in the system. Like we talk about so many things, not just the work she does and why she does it. We get into that later towards the last 20 minutes or so in terms of the intellectual property rules, the best way to secure your legacy, her steps that she takes with Noir IP that takes women through step by step, the reason she does that with the feedback loop and professional gaslighting that's out there, so that it's her consults are both strategy and mindset change, which is something that we discuss why we need to do. And then, of course, as always, where to find Guard Your Genius on Instagram and the best way to get in touch with her. So make sure that if you even if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're sitting there with a methodology of some sort, protect it. This is what we have to do. We are moving into Web 3.0. We are moving into the tokenization of your personal brand. This is the way of the future. So I'm glad to bring this show to you. Listen in. Hey everyone, before we begin, I just want to say that this episode is sponsored by the Curvy Hustle Leadership Jumpstart. That is a 30-day program that takes you behind the scenes to who you are in terms of why maybe you're not setting up and very convicted, why you're not coming up on your visibility. It's for people that know they're super supporters, but maybe don't set enough boundaries to make sure that they're taking and moving into their own, sense of control with personal authority, visibility, very much in tune with what Nady and I speak to today in terms of really owning your identity shifts and mindset. And that work can be accomplished one on one with uh, weekly accountability, resources to coach you through those times that we get stuck in our leadership gap between knowing what we were and we no longer are and our new identity. And so we work at your lower three levels of personal connection, safety and stability, and identity, and figure out your archetype, figure out the best business style that you really want to get set up in, because so many times it's a fear of success with leaders like us. It's not a fear of failure, it's a fear of success because you don't have a comfort with that unknown and it seems so overwhelming right now. And you don't really like to start anything that you're not going to see through. So I know who you are because I was you. The 30-day leadership jumpstart. Get it at www.drlisahollandpt.com.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. We'll walk the goddess path less traveled together to respectfully debate, supportively co-create, and wildly celebrate the unique passion, gratitude, and impact only a connection with women in wise counsel can provide. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
Great, everyone. So as you heard in the introduction, I have a wonderful woman I looked at on Instagram for a while. I liked the way she was packaging herself up. You know me, I love people who are doing normal things very differently. And so when I saw Neidy Hornsby doing stuff for, she's a lawyer, trademark specifically, and working for women to empower women, I just saw such a wonderful niche there, because I know I've been slacking on things. I went through the whole belly guru thing, and knew I needed to protect that and stuff like that, and hadn't done that for many years. And I know that's such a place of ownership. So it just went bing. And I was like, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, would you like to be on my podcast? And she was nice enough to do that. So I really would love, what I really love to do, as I do in every show, is kind of hand it over and just give us the path, Neidy, for how you got from being a lawyer. I know is like that same thing as like being in medicine and whatever. You have this analytical mind, you go down this certain path. It's a very traditional way you're going to go. How did you get from doing that to now you're sort of like doing it your own way? I almost look at it as it's a very like, it's so like up my alley with the curvy hustle. It's like so curvy. It's like got the feminine vibe in it. It's family focused. How did you get from A to B? What was your sacred success path there?
I think I got to from A to B by going through C and J, and then M and O, then
Yeah.
B and P, then back to A, then to B,
Yeah.
back to A, then
I
to B.
love that you said that, because that is it. And so many people give up because they don't think that's it. So tell us your story.
So it wasn't linear. It wasn't step after step. So long story short, I did the whole traditional corporate America. You go to law school, you take on all this debt, you need to be a lawyer, and you need to be a lawyer like lawyers are lawyers, right? Which is you go into a firm and you put in 60, 70 hours a week and you are the property of this institution. So all of that, right? And I think that the the catalyst for me was becoming a mom. I mean, I wish there was something sexier about the path, but really becoming a mom introduced me to my other self. And what does that mean? It means that I knew that I wanted to be a certain type of wife and a certain type of mom, and who that person was, my ideal self, couldn't survive or couldn't thrive or even be within corporate America, traditional corporate America structures, right? So you know how women are. There's a problem, we build the solution in heels. So I just knew that I just had to go out on my own. And so that was step B, right? Actually deciding that, hey, I can figure this out, right? I went to law school. I'm an attorney. I can do this. And I launched the firm. And in the beginning, the reason why I said, I went from A to J to O is because it was very messy. I think that people, like, they hear attorney and they automatically assume success. And that is so, so far from the truth. I always say when I left, I practiced door law, which is whoever walked through the door, hey, I was their lawyer, right? DUI, I do that. Divorce, I do that. I mean, whatever it was, right? To keep the lights on. But I think that commitment to the ultimate vision, the ideal me, who I wanted to be, eventually, the practice evolved into what it is now. I became very clear on my mission. I became hyper focused on who I served, unapologetically so. As you mentioned earlier, we were focused exclusively on working with fellow female founders, and that's full stop. Like that's what it is.
Mhm.
Um, and here we are. But to answer your question, it was absolutely not from A to B, and I think that for most entrepreneurs, that's really how it goes.
Yeah, and you have so many good nuggets in there um, that I think are really something to celebrate. It's something of the entrepreneurial spirit, but there's something about a woman entrepreneur that I really try to highlight that I've seen that I don't think
Mm-hmm.
enough people recognize that it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from the woman entrepreneur and maybe mirrored off of men, non-binary, whoever, but it comes in what you said. When I became a mother, when I became a wife, it's something that it's not just a social construct. And that's what I hate that conversation to some extent
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it's a lot of times I'm hearing it out of somebody who did not experience it to be able to compare it
Mm-hmm.
and or cannot experience it to
Mm-hmm.
be able to compare it. And there's a level of the fact that yes, of course, as human beings, we model things in our ideal in our imagination and we're so damn creative, but there is this innate, I mean, until we can really rectify the fact that society no longer exists unless women give birth, we're never going to be able to totally equalize that burden, that social burden. And thank God there is a sector of human beings that don't feel like it's such a burden of a thing that they actually like want to do it and don't want to like eat their young and want to actually make don't want to make sociopaths in the earth. So I love that you said that um because that's such I feel like women in general are entrepreneurial,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what I mean? Because that we just had to, whether or not we were making money or going out in the world, just like you said, when you have two kids versus three kids, versus four kids, you're gonna start switching things. Just like you said before we started, you homeschool. I mean, that's a shift. And you have a business and you have this. It's not like you're reading a book on that or go to school or get an MBA on that. You just gotta switch. So, I guess what I'm wondering is, what do you think you bring into just law? What do you think you brought into just law that might have, you know, been from that sort of spirit of you that then translated into you kind of saying, I'm going to work on trademarks, getting
Yeah.
down to that niche.
So from a practical point of view, having worked at these big law firms and seeing that the average client didn't look like me,
Mhm.
wasn't female for the most part, certainly was in minority, right? So from a practical point of view, I think that what we do well is that we bridge the gap in access to quality legal service, right? At predictable fees. So for the most part, I think entrepreneurs, rightfully so, shy away from seeking legal advice as they're building their vision, right? I think that attorneys have a really bad reputation as far as fees goes, and I think that we've earned that reputation, which is unfortunate. So from that point of view, I think that it's a very practical approach to the way that we do what we do, right?
Mhm.
We're very transparent in our fees. Our clients know what to expect, so that's part of what we bring into how we practice law. But from being my whole self, the reason why I absolutely love working with women is because I always tell this story because I just think it's amazing. I once had a consultation with a woman who's talking to me about all these complex legal questions that she has as she's building 4 different brands, and she's on the Zoom call and she's breastfeeding in the
Mm.
midst of this conversation. And I think that you know just that picture is what motivates me to do what I do and to serve who I serve, because I think that we're infinite in our ability to manage all these moving pieces gracefully, right?
Mm.
Um, like you said earlier, it's innate for us. So what makes me really happy and very appreciative of life is that I get to bring my whole self to my career, right? I get to bring the fact that I'm a wife, I get to bring the fact that I'm a mom, and it attracts women who are in similar journeys, and it makes the conversation about things that are not sexy. Look, the law is not sexy. I get it. But it makes the conversation flow better. It creates this synergy automatically on, between myself and the people that I serve. So I think that bringing my whole self to what I do is the greatest gift that anyone can have when it comes to like their career path. So I'm sitting here with you having an incredible conversation. I can hear my children.
Right.
Something is going on upstairs, right? And I am praying that it doesn't make its way downstairs. But should it, you know what I mean? Like you get that. And
Right.
there's you can't
Right.
put
And
a
there's no
price
like invalidation of everything you've
tag.
accomplished
Exactly.
because that happens, which
Exactly.
is that inequity gap that I'm also always like kind of like talking on. I'll post kind of a conversation. I feel like we have enough equality to get in. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying we're
Right.
there, but I think like, between the technology access, the education access, the the connection access. I mean, I'm talking to you. I'm in Charlotte, you're in Florida, right?
I'm in Virginia now, but I
Virginia.
was in
Okay.
Florida when we last talked, and that's
Yeah,
how it
okay.
works.
So I mean, I'll be talking to somebody in Australia.
Yeah.
I'll be talking at night on Monday. It's already morning Tuesday. I mean, it's total warp of like,
Yeah.
there's no boundaries now. So I feel like we have but it's that inequity where it's like you got to be proving yourself constantly 24/7. And you're right, like when you're working with women, especially women who are balancing multiple social roles. By the way, it's not like we just decide to wear a green jacket one day, and like these are major social roles that are like
Wait,
important.
and they're so weighty in their responsibility and the
Right.
consequence of slipping, right? You are raising human beings, and the goal should be in that journey to leave the world, just slightly better by by just pouring into these little seeds that will one day hopefully be decent human beings. Listen, if that's not pressure, I don't know what is.
Right. And then you get a true appreciation too of, and I'm not saying, partners, fathers, that type of thing, but there's something different about saying if I literally am, like you were saying that story, like as I'm breastfeeding, I'm literally like my body energy needs to go to produce that. Plus, I'm doing this. So I feel like we almost need to see that more
Yes.
normalized where more women are breastfeeding while they're taking calls. Because I
Yes.
think there would be a perspective of like, wow, which reminds me of one of the classes I taught when I was the belly guru. And we were doing a lot of focused on the pregnancy year, and I used to tie these big yoga firm cushions on the men for them to do the yoga with the women
I
during
love
the,
it.
just so they could see how different it is. And they were just amazed. Like you could see them looking at their wife with that, just they knew it didn't weigh the same. They knew
Right.
it wasn't the same thing, yet they were having such difficulty. And it wasn't until I put that on them that I think they really, from the feedback when we'd be talking, they really could appreciate what the woman was doing, which they couldn't really appreciate because you can't, like, no man can really, well now, people who define themselves as men with a uterus and things like that is a little different, but I mean, XY, it's very difficult for them to really understand, just like it's for us. It would be difficult for me as an XX to really understand how it is controlling an erection because you just see somebody, like, it's I just don't know that, right? So I think that's super important in understanding business, life, careers, home life, all of it is a level of relationships and how
Yeah.
can you actually relate. And we got so used to transactional or level one
Mm-hmm.
situations that
Mm-hmm.
I think now we're really calling for people like you, even in the business world, people like me, to have relationships again. And I am thinking this is a great gateway for women because we have been starved and pushed down from being able to show that. And I feel like we have such an advantage. Are you seeing that in your work as women are coming in? That it's really like the ones that really got relationship down and kind of left that corporate, I call it the white coat thing of hospital corporate, that like white coat syndrome, you're supposed to care, but from behind a
Mm-hmm.
shield. There's that in regular life too. Are you seeing a difference now in the success people who came in?
So I am, but I 2 points that I want to make because I
Mm-hmm.
think that you said something that was really important, which was that the access to certain rooms has been open to us in many ways, and compared to our mothers, and even compared to maybe like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, like certain rooms have opened up for us, but that female tax is still very present, right?
Yeah, the
That
inequity of it.
expectation that you are going to work like you're not a mom and that you're going to mom like you don't have a job is still very much present. What I do see the shift happening is that I think that women have decided to bet on themselves. So we can talk about the pandemic in particular, right? You would think that everybody literally just shut down, but the amount of women who decided, like, you know what, this is the time to launch that
Right,
business, right?
exactly.
It's the time to walk away from corporate America and build this thing that it has been in my head for I don't know how many years. I can tell you from a business and trademark perspective, like people call us when they've launched, they're trying to make sure that their legal infrastructure is in place. We grew during the pandemic more than any other time before, and like even now it was just this incredible hunger um from women to start their own thing. So I think that two things are happening. Yes, great, more doors are opening up for us, but we're entering those doors with the weight of, when you walk in here, you can't be your whole self, right? When you walk in here, you have to be working out of the same playbook as the big boys. And because of that, I think women have decided, well, enough with that model. I'm going to build my own. So that's really where I see the shift happening. And I love it, right? Because essentially, I read an article in Forbes recently that said 1,800 new businesses are launched every day by women. Well, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells you, for one, that corporate America needs to wake up, right? Because they are bleeding talent. If 1,800 new businesses are formed a day by women, corporate America really needs to pay attention to those
Good
numbers.
point. Good
You know what I
point.
mean? And I think that that is happening because, we're having these conversations and we're being really transparent and unapologetic about what our expectations are. And our expectations seem to be, hey, I want to be my whole self in everything that I do. And that includes this job. And if that doesn't work for you, then maybe I should build my own. I love it. I love all of
And
that.
statistically, there's the evidence for us, which is crazy
Right.
too, because research shows, like, they've done, like, they can go get the research and it shows leaders who have XYZ characteristics are better leaders. Like, their companies make more money, their people stay longer, they reinvest into their core, like, people tend to stay and
Hmm.
reinvest into their businesses. They don't tend to leave and go
Right.
become the core, the competition. Um, they tend to put more into the neighborhoods that they're in, and everyone seems to be happier. They show,
Mhm.
and then they show be, who has those characteristics naturally. And so, like, statistically, if we were actually hiring into leadership, because I see the big gap is really leadership, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
why are people not, if we were actually hiring leaders that had competency levels of the stats of the research, we naturally would have more women. And if anything, there would be just more women than men in
Right,
leadership. And that's not to say men are bad, this or that, but here you've had the ball. This is how you played the game. This is the result.
so give us the ball.
Right, right. Like it's not even give me the ball. It's like I'm tired of asking for the ball now. I'm not going to steal the ball. I'm not going to play. Like, I'm just going to be like, hey, I have this league now. You guys can come play, but by the way, these are the rules here, and this is how we play. And by the way, this is what happens when you play. And I
Right,
really believe I want to support so many um, what I call medicine women, because here are my kids right now, the dogs barking. I want to support so many of these medicine social changers, sort of game changers in different industries, because I feel like it really is the medicine. Like, it used to
right,
be the poison, and we've realized how to alchemize it
right.
into how
I
can
love
we,
that word.
like, we're the alchemists. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a very spiritual, mystical thing that's been missing. So I love what you were saying. Uh, if you could talk to the you of 10 years ago, what do
Oh
you
God.
think what you've learned? 10, sometimes people listen to this and they're like, oh, girl, I need to go 20 because thank God I, like, especially the
Mm-hmm.
older women, around, I feel like around our 30s or so. And it might be because we have kids. It might be because we've gotten ill. I'm finding that more and more. Um, sorry, myself, being in women's health. What would you say to that woman right now if you could, like, literally, because you can psychologically, right? We kind of like are always kind of talking to our inner child, our past
Yeah.
selves, our adolescent. What would you say?
I would say your path is not going to be linear and it's not going to look anything like what was modeled for you and what you see around you. And yes, it's scary, sweetheart. I get it. I understand the need to fit in, but I promise you, there is so much more on the other side of fear. There is so much more rooted in your authenticity and your ability to show up as who you are in every room, not just certain rooms, but in every room. So as you look around, you will see that there has been a traditional model of the way that things should be done. And don't be afraid to walk away from that. Your people will be there when you do. Um, Most importantly, you will be whole because you
Mm.
will no longer sell pieces of yourself for scraps. Um, you'll be able to be who you are in every space and you will occupy that space in a very intentional way. Keep going.
I love that, because it's like really about presence, and that is a big thing, right? It's almost like, instead of being the chameleon,
Oh, the
sort of,
chameleon.
I mean, it's a
Yes.
skill, but I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
exhausting.
It's exhausting. And what ends up happening is that you grow a lot of resentment against yourself because at the end of the day, when you review the day and you realize, wow, I was four different people and no one got to see the real me. And man, the real me is not that bad,
Right.
you
And when you
know?
when you get a glimpse of them, and that's what I think is the everybody's like, I don't want to age, I don't want to age, I don't want to age. But it's like, then you don't want to get wise. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying. I don't want to get any
yeah.
wisdom. I want to know a lot of stuff, but I don't want to really apply it. And that's really a discredit
And
for
that's really
everyone.
sad. And that's really sad because when I look back at me 10 years ago, which by the way isn't that long ago,
Yeah, it's
I
fast.
I barely recognized that girl. So when I think of 20 years ago, oh my God, I just want to go and hug that girl and
Right.
really put her in therapy, right?
Right.
So
Right. I
um
agree. My 30-year-old self, gosh, I mean, in some ways, I'm like getting a little bit of her energy back. But that's when I had
Hmm.
my second son, and then we moved down to just the mindset that I had
The
then
mindset, the
was
mindset.
so, but again, I think it was somewhat of, whatever. I grew up Generation X. It was very celebrated.
Yeah,
Was very successful,
yeah,
the whole way through. And so you're getting this feedback, which I think is another thing that, we both were in kind of licensed the professions, right? Like these ideal professions with letters after your name, right? Like we have letters,
the alphabet,
right,
right?
right. So like in that world, it's like, um, you almost like lose the identity and you become those letters like it and in some ways it was sold. I feel like it was sold to me as this is how you get equality because
Yes,
JD is JD,
yeah.
PT is PT, MD is MD, but it's never really, because like you said, there's always that equity, that gender inequity. And
Hmm.
some of that is ours to own too, because I see that struggle, right? Like the homeschool mom fighting against the public school mom fighting against
Yeah,
the private school mom. I mean,
right.
we've got to change a lot of that. So if we were to flip that, and you were to, like, let's just say ideally you get all these women, owning their intellectual property, they're supporting people, you're doing what you're doing, you got your kids, we're 10, 15 years down the road.
Hmm.
What
You
do you
know,
what would you want to hear from her right now? What could she whisper to you to be like,
right.
yeah, we did it?
So I will say something that's a little counter to that. I agree with you that there's always room for improvement, and there's always room for us to be more intentional about, fixing each other's crowns. But even in that regard, I have seen a significant shift. Look, women have built my firm, right? So I always push back on the idea that, women don't work well together, because that has not been my experience. I am part of several different organizations that are all, female memberships, and the amount of synergy and the way that people go out of their way to make sure that everybody's being helpful and sharing resources and sharing strategies. I think that women also have, um, in large circles, like, they've woken up to the fact that
Mm,
it's like, hey,
mm-hmm.
the
We're on the same
infighting,
team.
doesn't help, right? Because the boys play well together. There's a reason why they do that. They see the bigger picture, right? So I think, so, it just
That's
happened.
fine. That's fine.
Um, So I think that women are also becoming very aware of the power of the collective.
I think, yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree. If anything, what I think is, and I'll say that just from my work with women, life coaching, health, because, after a while you realize their physical health was just a manifestation of whatever was going on inside and with everybody else. Like, you might have a little visitor there. That's fine. Um,
Yes, Halo, you can. Oh, sorry.
that's fine.
Of all the days for my husband to have a meeting outside of the house, I
Course, because that's
apologize.
how it always works. Don't apologize. That's just kind of, again, that's the enemy trying to
Yes,
tap into your ear. How we can't
Jesus.
do this. Yes, we can. We just do it a different way. Um, what was I saying? Oh, I was saying, yes, we are finding that we have to work together. My point is that I was noticing women were getting very ill when they weren't re-embracing. And I know there's this big thing. There's no
Mm,
feminine, there's no masculine or whatever. There's something, yin, yang, whatever. It's the
mm-hmm,
women who weren't embracing that I think get into conflict. And I think they also get very frustrated. Like, I think people who have given up their femininity have given up that sort of the energy of that, the
mm-hmm,
freedom, the curves, like you're talking about, the
mm-hmm.
the way to sort of, I don't know, it's just it's something. Okay, we're
Yeah,
trying to
I
figure it out.
agree.
When they see somebody who has that still, that's what I'm talking about. That's where the cat,
Mm-hmm,
so, but it's really about them, right? Just like men
mm-hmm,
kind of puff their chest and are like, I think they're having that resurgence of issue with like these beta males and these guys that are simps and all that. Like, because what are you saying? Like, you're mad because they're nice to their women? Like, you're mad because they're cooperate? Like,
it's
you know
so
what I mean?
crazy.
It's like this, it's an identity. It's a fear. That's what it
That's
comes down
crazy
to,
to
right?
me. Yeah.
It's a fear. So I think that's always the issue. Underlying it, it's always a fear about who am I?
Mm-hmm.
If that is looked upon and I like that, then you're kind of saying I'm missing something and I don't like what I see.
Right, right,
Right.
right,
And
right.
so instead of thinking, which I think guys do, I've in my experience, it's been so much easier for them to sort of be like, hey, I'm a guy that doesn't have $2 million. Who has $2 million? Who can, and then they like trust each other or something like in a
Yeah.
different way. We don't really do that. We'll be like, I'm a lady who doesn't have $2 million, so I'm going to go work my ass and go get 56 other letters after my name until can become a lady who has $2 million, and then I don't need anybody. And it's like so backwards.
So then what I hear you say, what I hear you saying is that for women like us, like you and I and our circles, there's the mission is very clear for
Mm,
us, right? We can hear what you just said and then figure out how to live lives that are so authentic and so committed to
right.
breaking that cycle that the little human that you just saw walking behind me can grow up and know no, no, no. I had these are my values and this is what I'm standing on. And it may not look like everybody else, but I'm standing on my truth and I'm going to be authentic and I'm not going to play by the rules that make me feel like I need to now go and get 8 letters behind my name in order to have value. So I think that we can look at that problem and then, reframe it as our mission. Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah,
So I'm
right.
hearing you and I'm like, oh my God, that is very, very true. Very, very
Which I
accurate.
think to some ears, in my experience as of late, the last couple years, which is also interesting with everything you said about the pandemic. And yes, the stats show, in fact, Black women have
Mm-hmm.
been the number one
Mm-hmm.
of changing into entrepreneurs. With that, what's also interesting is that I personally have been getting, and I think it's just the shift again about fear and identity and where we're comfortable with, um, more pushback about what we just said as being like almost
Mm-hmm.
compromising us to say, I might not need, let's say, the cover of whether you want to say man, partner, whoever, but somebody to cover me in a way I can go off for a while or feel like I have a safety net to take the risk.
Yeah.
I may not, but maybe I do
And how
want that.
beautiful to shift from need, but how beautiful is it to shift from need to want? Right. I think that our mothers were probably very much in the need category, and our grandmothers certainly were. I don't think we are as much. And I think that we can be intentional to make sure that, the women that come after us are not at all, right? But it takes these very important conversations.
Yeah, and one thing also you said, like these little people around us, maybe one day there isn't even those rules. Like we're like, I get where everyone's going with let's make everybody, equal and
Mhm.
non-binary. And but the problem is that we're not there. Like we're not there as a society emotionally yet. Like we said with I mean, if we're getting mad because somebody has like a nicer car than us still, like it, like I mean, like
I think
we're
that there's
so
no
not there.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know that mindset will ever fully leave
Yeah, it won't
the
leave.
there will always be people who refuse to evolve and to rise to the moment. That's fine. We just need to
Not put them
say,
in leadership anymore.
right,
Like that's the thing. Like that's our only problem. It's not about,
right,
but like I get where they're saying that, but the reality is a really socially conscious, evolved society would actually be one which, to your point, could have a lot of variety and
right,
still coexist. And
and
that's, I
still
think,
coexist.
inherent with what you were saying about letting the little ones. It's kind of like, again, if you're a parent who thinks every one of your kids need to be a mini you, then now you're the boss.
Then
But
now
that's
you're the
management. That's
boss.
not leadership.
And
That's
what
really
ends up
not it.
happening is that those little people go and they try to find new bosses.
Right.
Once they've outgrown you, and they don't ever walk in their own power.
Right.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And you get ill or whatever happens to you. And unfortunately, I think that's what a
Mhm.
lot of the illness is and stuff. So I see that's why I call it like the work you're doing. I kind of started out with a lot of healthcare providers because I think that's where the first route was. Like if you were
Right.
kind of in touch with that earlier on, you went into healthcare. But now there's so many social healers, such as what you're doing in governance, in academics. Like they're all medicine women. They're
I
all
love that,
medicine women.
Lisette. Can I
You
just
know?
say that?
Thank you.
I've never heard that before. Social healers. I have never heard, healing, the concept of healing within like social constructs. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm really trying to start that conversation because healing itself is just evolution to me. I think that's why I
Yeah.
was always very integrative because I understood I'm not the healer. I mean, we're all
Right.
healers. I'm just sort of facilitating, right?
Mhm.
Create the environment, get yourself to like shift into what you can do. And now I'm seeing the beauty of, let's say, the concept of B Corps that was really popular like a decade ago, and then it like disappeared. And there's a million reasons why B Corp disappeared, but basically that's a socially conscious setup to kind of allow you to be functioning in the mindset of, let's say, nonprofit, but you're for profit.
Okay.
And so that kind of, but now I see like almost like there's a resurgence of it. And it doesn't surprise me because as we get more women in, as we're, getting, it's just a natural way
It's
we
only a
run.
nat right. It's only a natural extension of having
Right.
women
So
step up
so
to the
I
plate
see
that way.
that. So I guess that what I was saying before, I guess the lady 10 years down the road from you would sort of be saying we have a society where it's not so much that we have rule breakers, but like the rules have shifted in a positive way.
Well, I'm hoping the woman 10 years from now is saying thank you to
Mm,
me, right? Because I stuck to the uncomfortableness of, you know, living a life that is designed and not
I
going through the
love
motion,
that.
right? So
Love
I'm
that.
hoping that she is like, man, thank you, because you living that way means that we are wherever we are at that
Right. Because it's so easy to go back. See, that's the thing that I think maybe is the beauty of whatever's happening now between 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, even 60-year-old, these women that are just, it's not that we're defying age, it's just I just see us being like, no, I like, there was this part and now this is my time to do this part. It's just looking at it at a different phase. What is it that, so tell me a little bit, let's take it, give me like a synopsis. If somebody was to work with you, let's say they have a
Mhm,
great idea,
mhm.
ideally, when is it time to kind of contact your office and what would they be taken through?
Yeah, so in the ideal scenario, entrepreneurs are calling us the minute that they have an idea that they want to go to market with. And the reason why that's when you want to talk to someone like me is because you want to go into market on a very sound legal foundation, right? You want to make sure that you are incorporated, right? That you're not going into market exposing yourself and your personal assets to the liabilities and debts of the business. You want to make sure that you are engaging with business dealings and business people and vendors and employees and contractors with written agreements to dictate how that relationship is going to go. And then very important, you want to make sure that the brand that you are building that you actually own, that you're not going to spend the next 3 5 years investing money and time into a brand only to find out that someone else owns that name and now
Mm,
you have to rebrand, or that someone decided to build something very similar and now there's confusion in the marketplace, but you never took the time to own your trademark. So these are all the pitfalls that you avoid by having a conversation and really outlining what the vision is with someone like me so that we can say, well, here are, the legal holes that we need to make sure we are plugging up and making sure that you're going into market in a very strategic and sound way. Do people call us before they launch? No. We're always not the first people that they call, and I get it. I am very aware that legal considerations when it comes to business is just not sexy. People, the marketing, the branding, the PR, like that's where all the fun happens. But, you know, you're not protecting those investments if you haven't taken the time to make sure that what you're building is legally sound. So
Mhm.
what we try to do is that we have these in-depth conversations with our clients just to make sure that we understand what the vision is. Because if you can articulate the vision to us, then we can say, okay, here are the legal strategies to make sure that you are not out there building something that ultimately becomes more of a liability than the dream.
That's smart. And I think, yeah, it's somewhat of like just educating people, even to the level of, I mean, we talk about imposter syndrome. Half the time, I'm just talking about in identity shifts with some of the
Yes.
clients I'm working with
Me
getting
too. Me
clinicians to
too.
become creators, or just this idea of being a
Yes.
creator
Yes.
is like, I don't think I have something that's even worthy.
Yes.
So, it's such a mind shift. Doing that, the energy might shift for them. They might really, it's like, it's like when you get to that level of like, oh, I'm going to charge. I'll say this with like yoga teachers. They want to charge like $20 for a yoga class or $10 for a yoga class. And then like all of a sudden they'll see somebody charging $150 for a yoga, and they think now, and it's funny, but like you see these like movie stars or something, they're selling bourbon, they're selling, car. I mean, they're putting their, brand and their label. So I think maybe it's changing to like, wait a minute, know yourself and feel like you got something of worth, and then go to somebody like you, and let's kind of like, that's like the seal. I feel like it's such a like a spiritual sort of energetic seal when you
Mm-hmm.
commit and invest
Right.
in yourself like that.
So, it's funny that you say that because so people call me to have a legal discussion about a business discussion about their legal needs. And it ends up, it's almost like equal parts the legal strategy and the mindset shift. Because again, as women, we have been bred to believe that we cannot do it. And then we don't know why. We just know that we can't. We can articulate why. So much of the conversation is like, no, sis, like that is an incredible idea. And it's an incredible idea because blah, 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 blah. And
Right,
of
right,
course you
right.
can because da, 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 da. And then we talk about the specifics of the legal needs. I think that fear transcends industry because I too find myself, and as I'm talking to them, I'm really talking to myself
Right,
because,
right.
the small voice is always there. You
Mhm.
just get a little better at ignoring it, right? Um, I think that that's just part of the process.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing from you is that it's feedback. Like I think women are really lacking that feedback. I mean, again, also research shows like so many women get trapped in middle management type of,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what industry. You
Mm-hmm.
can never get actually to that like top thing. We're kind of like stuck in that middle management because we don't have those attributes that they're giving seniority to, or
Right.
they think that, but a lot of that too is once we're identified as, let's say, whatever the famous, like, well, you just don't seem to like, you know, have have a like most of the time somebody telling you like, well, you don't seem like, you can resolve conflict as strongly as Joe or something,
What does that even
something,
mean?
whatever, just because you're not being that way. What we don't get after that, which is what I'm hearing you, is like, we don't get fed into, like, even if we were to ask, well, what would you need me to do? Like you just said, I have all these wonderful, what is
Mm-hmm.
it that I'm lacking? Like they never have an answer. Like you said, like they never have an answer for you. We never
So
have an answer for us.
essentially, we're very much part of the problem too, right?
Right,
Because
right,
we're just
right,
accepting what they're giving, the scraps that they're giving us, and we're calling it a blessing.
right. And it's like professional gaslighting, that it's like, I always say it's like a domestic violent relationship. You know
That's
what I
a
mean?
really
Like you're
great
just,
analogy. That's a great analogy.
so it's just like you get complacent and complain. You're like, well, it's not as bad as this. It's not like
It
how
could
I,
no,
when
it
I
could
grew
be
up.
worse. It
Yeah, it
could
could
be
be.
worse. I am a salaried employee.
Yeah,
I don't have
I
to
do
clock
get this
in.
much, but it's like, yeah, but like, what are you
Yeah,
sacrificing? So I
right.
love this. I love everything about what you're doing. I love what you're doing.
Ah,
How
thank you.
how how can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you if they're like, you know what? She's my lawyer. She's the person that's going to get
Ah,
me going.
the best way to find us is on Instagram, at Guard Your Genius. That our DMs are open. There's a link to our consultation calendar on there. But most importantly, we try to be very intentional in sharing resources. So even if you are not interested in talking to an attorney right now, we're constantly posting grant opportunities and just opportunities in general, because again, being part of the collective means that you give as much as you take. So we try to be very intentional in using our social media platform as a way to share resources. So if you're a woman in business, you'll probably find something of interest on our page.
Definitely think so. If you're a woman in business and you don't look at her page, let's have a talk
Let's
because
have a talk. Oh, thank you,
you're
Lisa. You're
not
so
setting
sweet.
yourself up for any success.
You're so
You're
sweet.
part of the problem in your scenario. Let's talk. So yeah, so that's the best place. And any of the show links and things like that. Now the name of your company is Noor,
No
right?
RIP.
Noor? Okay.
And you can find us at norip.com. But again, the best way to reach us is Instagram. We're very hands-on in our engagement.
Yeah, and I think this is the way business is going, guys. Anybody listening to this, no matter where you're coming from, I want you to hear this. I know I've been saying this when I talk about it's going to be lean. It's a curvy world. We're gonna be talking afterwards if she has a couple minutes because we're going into this curvy world. But
Yeah.
like it's gonna be lean. And I've just been talking to a woman who's been coaching one of my mentors. Has been coaching, Fortune 500 type of clientele, executive coaching, whatever, for years. And she's supporting me in helping bring some of her tools of core leadership into an elite mastermind. And what I'm telling her, because she's in her 70s, she's very young for whatever, but I'm like, I don't think corporate understands. I have no desire to go into corporate with my executive coaching. Like corporate to me now is exactly what I've been talking about for 5 years. Like it's lean, it's a lot of mompreneurs, it's very feminine minded, yin minded, however you want to, it's collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
There's competition there, but the competition is like, as long we're not going to destroy the world for the freaking
Right.
rights to I
Right.
mean, I don't think corporate America, these Fortune 500 companies understand. And I said, I don't want to go in and tell them. I would rather they just see this whole other world emerging. And at that point, they have to surrender.
They
Like
have to
I'm so
surrender.
tired with fighting the whole like even the DEI conversations and everything. I'm like, guys, you all should just leave those companies and just focus on whatever this thing we're creating, where there's multimillionaire companies out of like 10 people and less,
Mm-hmm.
because of what you just said. Talk to
Yes.
me
Yes. Yes.
personally on
Yes.
social media. Let me be very real and authentic. And they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
They
I
don't
agree.
know how to do it. So I'm so excited to talk to you again, whoever. This is the way to go. This is the way of the future. Yes, you can. It's not about being everything to have everything. It's about having everything because you know other people that got other stuff and you're all going to do it together. So I welcome
Yes.
you.
Oh, I love
I
this.
welcome
I love
you
it.
into this mindset. And if anybody needs anything, go on the show notes, get the connections. If it's super, super easy, make sure that you reach out on Instagram to either one of us. We'll connect you guys. And thank you so much for being here. Any last words? Any word for 2023, since this will probably come out in 2023 for them to think about during the year?
Let's make 2023 the year of authenticity, where we show up as our whole selves into every room and we occupy space intentionally.
I love it. Authenticity. All right, Neidy, let's go. And we will
Thank
go into
you.
2023. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you
No,
next
thank you for
time
the opportunity. This was so much fun.
I thank you on owning her health right now.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa Holland, PT. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.